the championship rounds, round 11. And now here we go. We are looking at a sports legend in the purple trunks, Evander Holyfield. Holyfield continues to dig in. A left hook to the head. He's got Tyson in trouble. Tyson's ready to go. A straight right hand. The champion stops the fight. And Holyfield has...
I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's the most unbelievable thing I've ever been privileged to witness.
Mayhem. It is bedlam.
This is the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on UStream, presented by GAR1680. Here is your host, Paco Rivera.
Good afternoon and welcome to another broadcast of the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on UStream. This show is brought to you by Golden Age Radio, GAR1680 AM. The phone lines will be open during the show, so feel free to call in anytime to offer your comments or opinions. The number is 605-215-1680. That's 605-215-1680. Starting off with a recap of fight results during the past week. Last Friday night on ESPN2's Friday Night Fights, top 10 IBF ranked contenders Tion Kennedy and Chris Martin battled it out for 10 rounds. And compared to the previous week's broadcast on ESPN, it seemed that boxing fans might have gotten their money's worth this time. It appeared to me that Kennedy was the busier fighter throughout the fight, almost always moving forward and continuously throwing punches, while Martin mostly backpedaled, bobbed, and weaved. But it also seemed that Chris Martin had landed the heavier blows and was quite successful with them in most rounds. In the end, the fight was declared a draw, and there didn't appear to be any complaining from fighters or fans over that decision. In the undercard fight, a promising-looking welterweight with a 10-0 record who defected from Cuba, named Yordenis Ugas, appeared to easily handle his opponent, Esteban Alvarez, in the 8-round bout and upped his record to 11-0. I had gotten the feeling that Ugas could have ended the fight early if he really wanted to, but chose to keep the fight going as if to give himself a workout. I mean, that's what it seemed like to me anyway. In the first round, Ugas landed a strong two-punch combination. I think it was a left to the body and then a right to the head, and Alvarez went down and got an 8 count. After that, Ugas simply outclassed Alvarez for 7 more rounds. Yordenis Ugas, who is 25 years old and calls himself the Black Prince, is definitely someone to keep an eye on. He had almost 400 amateur fights before turning pro. He won the lightweight gold medal at the 2005 World Amateur Boxing Championships at age 19. He also captured a gold medal at the 2007 Pan American Games and a bronze medal in the lightweight division at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. On Saturday in Germany, WBO super middleweight champion Robert Stieglitz won a unanimous decision over Henry Weber, who was undefeated. In the main event, Arthur Abraham stopped Pablo Farias in the 5th round to capture the WBO's European title at super middleweight. Robert Stieglitz is scheduled to face Mikkel Kessler on April 14th in Denmark, but said that if that doesn't happen, he wants to fight Abraham in a showdown of super middleweight champions.
This is the Boxing Talk Show on GAR1680.
There are those who would say that the heavyweight division in boxing has always been and still is the sport's premier division. That heavyweight bouts is the prime time of boxing, the biggest showcase of boxing. If you take into consideration all boxing fans as a whole, by saying all boxing fans, I'm including people that are willing to tune into a fight about once or twice a year if substantial amounts of promotions and advertisements for the bout was enough to draw their attention. Yes, us true boxing fans know that those people aren't real dedicated fans of the sport. But we can't deny that there are people from that group that will dish out $60 to watch a pay-per-view boxing event if something about the bout and the fighters generated enough interest. And historically, over the years, that has almost always and exclusively meant the big guys, the heavyweights. I don't know why that is. It just is. Now, the problem with that in this country is that there are no American heavyweight champions currently, and there are very few Americans that are highly ranked in that weight class. My question is, why is that? Why do we have so few American heavyweight contenders? For the first time in our history, it would seem. If you look at Ring Magazine's 10 Best Heavyweights, for example, you'll see the following. And please pardon me if I have trouble pronouncing some of these names. At number 1, Vladimir Klitschko from the Ukraine. Number 2, his brother, Vitaly Klitschko, also, of course, from Ukraine. 3, Alexander Pavitkin from Russia. At number 4, we have an American, Eddie Chambers, whose fight scheduled for this Saturday, by the way, has been canceled due to injury. The Ring's number 5, Alexander Dmitrenko from Ukraine. 6, Robert Helenius from Finland. 7, Denis Boytsov from Russia. 8, Ruslan Chagayev from the country of Uzbekistan. At number 9, we have the second American on the list, Chris Arreola. Arreola also happens to be ranked number 1 by the WBC, but I haven't heard any talk of any mandatory title match with Arreola as the opponent. Maybe because he was already defeated by Vitaly back in 2009. 10, Kubrat Pulev from Bulgaria. So just 2 on that list from the United States. Why is that? I'd like to know. Call in. The number is 605-215-1680. 605-215-1680. The other American heavyweight on the list of Ring's top 10, as I mentioned, is Eddie Chambers, who already lost to Vladimir Klitschko in March of last year and had a loss to Alexander Pavitkin back in 2008. So this doesn't look too good for the good old US of A, does it? I'll tell you, one American heavyweight that I think may crawl up on that list in the very near future is Seth Mitchell. Mitchell is looking very promising. Right now he is undefeated with a record of 24-0 with 18 knockouts. His last 11 fights ended in KOs in early rounds, mostly in the first or second. That kind of brings back some memory of an early Mike Tyson. Now, I am not comparing Mitchell to Mike Tyson. I am just making a point about the quick knockouts. Anyway, Seth Mitchell hasn't fought any highly ranked contenders yet, but keep an eye on him. I have a feeling he might be our next great American hope. Boxing sure is getting its share of drama once again. Last week during this show I used the term soap opera. But hey, if all the controversy going on helps build viewership and keeps fans back in the sport, or brings back fans back to the sport, then who knows, maybe it's a good thing. Floyd Mayweather has called out to Manny Pacquiao to fight him on May 5th. Pacquiao has said, okay, let's fight May 5th. So now there's just one person who can make it happen or keep it from happening. You guessed it, Bob Arum. So Mr. Arum has fans sitting on the edge of their seats in this never-ending cliffhanger, wondering what his decision is going to be. This past Friday, boxing trainer and commentator Teddy Atlas gave his views about a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight and offered his prediction of who would win if that happened.
Well, as far as who would win the fight, I agree with Stephen Smith that Mayweather would win it, maybe quite easily. I think that he's a more solid fighter. He's the naturally bigger guy. He can match him with speed. A lot of guys can't do that. He can match him in another category. A lot of people can't do it with confidence. And his defense is better. He's better technically. I think he'd be able to get a lot of opportunities while Manny gets away with being aggressive, maybe a little bit reckless aggression. He won't get away with that with Mayweather. He'll pick him, he'll pot shot him coming in. And I agree a little with Stephen Smith that the guy stopping the fight is Arum, but for different reasons than these two antagonists that you just saw putting that show on, then they understand in the real domain of boxing, economics. Really, Arum doesn't want that fight to happen right now because it's going to cost him $120 million. Do you want to lay out $120 million, Bernardo? No, I don't think you do. Especially when you have a fighter, like Pacquiao, who can go and he can make $25 million, $20 million fighting other guys, and you don't have to pay that much for the opponent. That allows the promoter, who happens to be, you got it, Bob Arum, to make more money, to have more margin to make money. It is about making money to Mr. Arum and to all promoters. He can make more money if he doesn't have to pay $60 million to both fighters. Unless both fighters come way down in their demands for money, I don't think that fight's going to happen, and the window for opportunity is closing, getting smaller, smaller, and smaller, because Pacquiao has so much stuff going on. He's a congressman. He might wind up being the president of the Philippines. He gets paid for singing. Even though he don't sing that great, he gets paid for singing and for acting. He don't act great either, but he gets everything. He's an icon over there. He has a lot of things on his plate. His interest in boxing is going to start to fade.
In the continuing saga of Amir Khan, Lamont Peterson, the WBA has ordered a rematch. If Peterson doesn't agree to the rematch, he would have to give up his belt. I don't see why Peterson wouldn't want to fight Khan. With all the controversy going on around this and all the attention it's gotten, it should be a huge money fight for him. The only way I see him turning it down is if he moves up in weight to 147 and fights Pacquiao. That is, if Peterson turns out to be next in line to face the Philippines Pac-Man. Phone lines are open. Call with your comment or opinion. The number is 605-215-1680. That's 605-215-1680. Or you can email me at GAR1680@gmail.com. You can also find us on our Facebook site, Golden Age Radio 1680. Just follow the link from our homepage, GAR1680.webs.com, or you can share your thoughts on the chat panel right here on this UStream site.
This is the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on UStream, presented by GAR1680.
Friday Night Fights on ESPN is taking the week off. There won't be anything on there this Friday, but it returns on January 27th. I'll preview that event next Wednesday. In what should be a good bout in March, middleweight champion Sergio Martinez will be taking on the Irish fighter Matthew Macklin on St. Patrick's Day in Madison Square Garden in New York City. Martinez has been considered by many as king of the middleweight division. Most rankings show him as third best in the world, pound for pound. just under Pacquiao and Mayweather. Macklin is coming off a split decision loss against another middleweight champion, Felix Sturm. That was a great fight, a hard-fought battle that Macklin, one of the judges, and many fight fans believe he won. Macklin has stated that he expects a large crowd of Irish in New York City to turn out on St. Paddy's Day for the fight. And although he traveled from another side of the world, he sees himself as having home turf advantage for this match. Have a listen.
Sergio Martinez is certainly going to bring the best out of me, and I will need to be at my best to win this fight. But I'm very confident. There's no doubt in my mind who the new middleweight champion will be on March 17th. The fact that it's March 17th, Paddy's Day night here in New York with the big Irish community here, I'm going to feel like I'm fighting in Dublin. So I'm going to be the home fighter with the home crowd, and there's a lot of Irish coming from Ireland. Our friends from Tipperary that are coming from Australia that text me this morning saying they booked flights and hotels. So there's not just the Irish here in New York and the Irish from Ireland, but Irish all over the world are coming here to Madison Square Garden. Just want to touch on fighting here at Madison Square Garden. Very proud, feel very privileged, very excited to be fighting here. All the great middleweights over the years, from back in the day of Jay LaMotta, Rocky Graziano, Tony Zale, probably the heyday of the middleweight division. All those fights were here at Madison Square Garden.
You are listening to Golden Age Radio on 1680 AM in Concord, North Carolina. Please visit us on the web at gar1680.webs.com.
For those of you that would like to stick around and continue chatting about boxing with each other here on the UStream chat panel, there will be 2 old-time boxing events that will be streamed here for you. The first will be Archie Moore versus Yvonne Durrell from the year 1959. It was the second time these 2 light heavyweights faced each other in the ring. Archie Moore was born in 1916 and fought a total of 219 professional fights, the last in 1963. His ring career spanned 5 decades. Our second stream fight today is one that many of you may remember. Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson 1. The year 1996. I discussed this match in a previous show. I think it was 2 weeks ago. You can find a recorded version of that broadcast on YouTube. Just enter GAR1680 in the search bar. I am Paco Rivera. See you next week.
Archie Moore faces Yvonne Durrell for the second time in the return bout that everyone in the boxing world wants to see. Montreal, the 12th of August, 1959.
Archie Moore, World Light Heavyweight Champion, in black trunks. Yvonne Durrell, challenger, is wearing white. Two ripping punchers going right out after each other.